Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. We are going to have a start of our English class of grade 8 and we will take this start with the recitation of dua. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. So students, today we are going to start a new chapter of English and that is chapter number 15. So let's look at the unit number 15. So students, come to page number 141 of your books and unit number 15 is a family trip to Naran. Now before we take a start of this unit, let me tell you that as it is very much clear from the name of the unit, a family trip to Naran, we can get that this unit is going to narrate us an event and it is actually about to tell us regarding a family trip to Naran. So we will be getting a lot of things regarding the tourist place of Pakistan, which is Naran. So before taking a start of our unit, let me tell you one thing, that this is actually a letter written to a friend by her friend. So actually a girl is narrating the trip to Naran to her friend through a letter. So we have already discussed that what letters actually are. They are the modes of communication. And we previously read a letter which was a formal letter, because that was written to some editor of the newspaper. So that was a formal letter. But now the letter which we are going to start now, a family trip to Naran, is a letter which is written to a friend. Therefore, this letter is going to be an informal letter. So I think before we start the unit, it is important that we just have a look on the formats of the letter first. So I'll start with the formal letter, which we have already covered. So just look at the format of a formal letter. So what's the format of a formal letter is this, that we start the formal letter with writing the sender's address, that in the top left corner of the page you mention the sender's address. You can also call it writer's address, which means that the person who is writing the letter, we mention address of that person at the top left corner of the page. After that, the date on which the letter is being written is mentioned. Then this format goes for the formal letter, okay? We write the letter of the receiver, which means that we have to write the address of the person to whom we are writing the letter. For example, in our formal letter, we read that the letter was being written to the editor of a newspaper. So it was mentioned this way, that the editor, daily news, and then whichever city it was located in. Or you can say that if you are writing a letter to your principal regarding something, you will be writing it this way: the principal, then IIUI school Mansehra, and then in the next line you will be writing it as Mansehra. And it is preferable if you mention the city codes as well. But because you don't have to actually post the letters, so these things are omitted when we write such letters in our books, or our papers or notebooks. After that, you write the subject. Now what is subject? Subject is basically a short description of what you are writing the letter. Like, you have to define the cause, the purpose of your letter in simply one sentence of 1 or 2 lines. This is because in the formal letter you are usually writing the letters to the authorities, and they people do not have really so much time that they first go through your whole letter and then they decide whether they should consider it or not. So subjects are written for their convenience and for our preferences as well, because if we are mentioning a subject, the person will, if we have a captivating kind of a subject, which is actually telling the person that what is our concern. He will get to the letter at once, right? So this subject actually is a brief, short purpose of what we want to write the letter about. After that, you start your letter with the salutations. Respected sir or ma'am. If you know that the person you are writing to is a male, you simply mention respected sir. If you know that the person you are writing to is a female, you mention ma'am. And if you just don't know that the person you are writing the letter to is a male or a female, in that case you write sir and then a forward slash and then madam. Like if the reader is a male, he'll take himself as sir, and if that is a female, he'll automatically be read as ma'am. Then you put a comma and then you write your letter. Now in your body of the letter there are three main parts. The first one is introduction, in which you give a short introduction of what your purpose of writing is, like what your letter is actually based on. You give a short introduction of that. Then you come towards the main contents of that thing which you actually want to discuss. And after that, you put an end to your letter by summing it up in a conclusion paragraph. So you put a conclusion. It's like writing an essay, but essays are actually long. But in the case of letter, these are short, but you have to make sure that you keep the paragraphs in mind, like introductory paragraph, then the main content, and then the conclusion paragraph. After that, you write your closing remarks, and closing remarks might be like thanking you or you're sincerely, and these all things can be your complimentary closings. And then you mention your name and your designation if there is any. For example, if I write a letter, so I'll be writing my name and then I'll be writing that I am a teacher at IIUI school, because that's my designation, right? Okay, so this was a quick format of the formal letter. But before proceeding towards our informal letter, I would like you people to note the punctuation marks, please. Mostly what we have is the commas. I cannot see any other punctuations like exclamations or anything else in the letter. So you must omit uses of extra punctuation marks, because especially when you are writing such letters in your papers, your use of extra punctuations deduct your marks. So you have to be very much careful that where you have to put which kind of a punctuation mark. Now you see that in the sender's address you write that ABC colony, like whichever colony it is, and then you put a comma, and then you write the name of the city. Then you say dated, and there is a colon, like 2 dots, and then you mention the date. Then when you are writing the receiver's designation and address, you say that the editor, then there is no comma, then which colony, which area he belongs to, you write the name of that, and after that you put a comma, and then there's the name of the city. Then when you write the subject, again after giving the heading of a subject, you put a colon, then you write your subject. Now when we come towards the salutation, we say respected sir, and then there is a comma, and then we move towards the body of the letter. And while moving towards the body of the letter, you don't have to give the headings like body of the letter or introduction or main content. This thing is given only for your understanding, okay? Then if you say thanking you or yours sincerely as your complimentary endings, you put a comma there. But you have to keep in your mind that yours never go with an apostrophe. You always have to be very much careful of this thing, that when you write yours sincerely, the S in yours does not go with an apostrophe. and then you put a comma and then your name. So this was the pattern of a formal letter. Coming towards the informal letters now. First of all, it is important to know that what informal letters are. So you know, students, that informal letters are the letters which we write to our friends, our family members, or our relatives. These are the friendly letters which actually do not follow any norms, because you can speak to your friends or your family in any way you want. So these kind of friendly letters are known as the informal letters. For example, your formal letters are specified for some purposes, but your informal letters can go without any purpose. You can write to discuss anything with your friends or your family members or your relatives. There is no bound for the informal letters. And there are some slight differences in the patterns of both these letters as well. So just look at those differences. First of all, in the informal letter, we write the sender or the writer's address. For example, if you are writing the letter to your friend or to your family members, then you are the writer of the letter. So you will be mentioning your own address at the top left corner of the page. After that, and this process is same as that goes for the formal letter. After that, you mention the date, and this is also the same as that for the formal letter. But what differs is that in the formal letter, after mentioning the date, we write the receiver's address, means the address of the person to whom we are writing the letter. But in the informal letter, we don't have to mention any such address, because usually the address of the receiver goes on the envelope. So we don't have to write it inside the letter. So there's one more omission, and that is the omission of the subject, because obviously our family, our friends, they have time for our letters, and they know that we are writing them for any purposes, like not for any specific purposes, but for anything that we want to share with them. So we don't have to mention the subject in the informal letter. And we have to be very much sure about these two things while we are writing a letter in our paper. So what we do is that after mentioning the date, we go directly to the salutations. And there is a slight difference in our salutations as well. As you can see that in our formal letter, we use the word respected sir or ma'am. But here in our informal letter, we usually know the name of the person to whom we are writing. So we can mention it as dear Farah, or you can write dear friend, dear cousin. But usually in the informal letter, you go with the names. Then you start your letter, and then you put some opening remarks, then your content, then your closing remarks. You know, students, that paragraph distribution is important everywhere. Because if you just start reading a letter or any piece of writing and you start from the beginning and there is no paragraph and nothing at all, it makes you bored and you actually feel disturbed, like where is the thing going? But if we have the thing divided in proper paragraphs, it is easy to read and it is easy for us to comprehend like what things are written and how they are differently classified, right? So therefore the body of the letter here also is put into paragraphs. Then you end your letter with yours affectionately, and then you put a comma and you write your name. Now students, I have noticed that some of the students write your cousin or your loving cousin. So the mistake that you people make there is that while you are writing your cousin, you don't have to write yours cousin. Your cousin is enough. Like why would someone say yours cousin? If you are using the word yours, then you can say it with yours affectionately or yours truly or anything like this. But when you are mentioning that your cousin or your friend, so you have to use the word your, not yours. Okay, and again, that when you are using the word yours, you don't have to use it with an apostrophe. The S of yours go without an apostrophe, and after yours affectionately you put a comma, and then moving to the next line you put your name over there. So this was simply the format of an informal letter, which is quite easy. So we are now done with both the formats. So I think this is enough for today. Tomorrow we will be starting our unit. We will be starting the reading of our unit properly, right? So for that, I would prefer that you give a reading to the unit prior to my starting the unit. Jazakallah.